Hello there, welcome back to Prof. Neel. It's a pleasure having you here on a Friday afternoon. Biryani or Pulao? Mr. Rafique, the teacher, recalls after 4 decades. As Institute of Hotel Management Ahmedabad is all set to celebrate the golden jubilee of our founding day in the month of October 2023, here is a beautiful memory from that from my alma mater that inspires from the founder principal, Mr. N.M. Rafique. Now, when we joined the institute, we were the first course of the 3-year diploma in hotel management and catering technology, and we had an apology of everything of a campus of. I mean, when you only if you have a campus, you can have an apology campus. Actually, we had a little bit of space within the boys' polytechnic campus, and they had a huge space, and we had a little bit of patch. And our building we shared with the technical education board. Now that made many of us feel uncomfortable. Where have we landed up? But the Tina factor was staring at us. There is no alternative. Now having no other births, having no birth in any other classes, any other disciplines, we had no choice but to continue. So half-heartedly we continued. So, but anyway, the first classroom session, Mr. Rafique, the founder principal, he stepped in and he addressed us and he asked us the definition of food. A very simple thing, but and with this very pleasant demeanor and a very nice way of speaking, we felt we had come to the right place because the manner in which that gentleman carried himself, the way he carried his called grace, very graceful. So now there are 40 students in the first course. The gender mix again adding to the woes of our infrastructure and campus. 2 girls, 38 boys. Can you understand our woes? Can you understand our misery? Absolutely imbalanced, the gender imbalance, no balance. So then he asks us about the definition of food. So 38 hands go up instantly. The boys, the girls don't answer. Don't even attempt. The boys are teenagers, charged up. They want to impress the principal. They want to take leadership to the class. So the finest of vocabulary, turn by turn, they give the definition of food. They think using words like metabolism, catabolism, and I don't know what are the bolism. I mean, about the anatomy of the human body and which organ does what to the food. I mean everything just to impress him. He wrote down patiently all the 38 answers of the blackboard, which is very characteristic of him. And then finally summed it up succinctly. That again it's classic trait of his. And left us with a very simple definition of food. A very sweet, short definition of food, which I'll never forget till I go to my grave. When we were all going high octane and going berserk, ballistic, here there was a gentleman who just made it so simple. I think we learned much more than the definition of food then. He very sweetly drove home the message that keep it short, keep it sweet, silly. He didn't have to say anything more. We learned. So it was nice to be there. So we felt comfortable with him. Guns, horses, etc. That plus interaction, the food, plus other interactions during the year, we were at ease then. Yes, we come to the right place. And because we were a fledgling of institute, that to Ahmedabad, 25 lakh, 20 lakh population, I mean, hardly anything to talk about except textile mills. The Manchester of India, just a beautiful title for the city. But nothing else in the city. Except PRL, ISRO, NID, that's it, nothing more. I think. Yeah, a lot of cinema theatres, because the Gujus love cinema. Nothing more. Nothing to do with, like in Bombay. So, nothing flashy about Ahmedabad then. We had no 5-star hotel. We had maybe a couple of 4-star hotels. we're just in the shadow of Bombay. So this man came as a revelation. So he used to come. He was now this because there was no shortage of teachers, paucity of teachers. There was no teacher wanted to come to Ahmedabad, except the majority who were from IHM Madras. There was a gentleman, and then there was Chef Roy and a couple of other gentlemen, a couple of other teachers. So very often he had to come in as a substitute teacher because of the short paucity of teachers. I think he not only had to, but he also enjoyed. I think because he was he was in his soul he was a teacher, born as a teacher, and then he wanted to get away from the drudgery of the files and the papers that he had to read and sign. So this interaction with boys and girls he enjoyed, and that showed in his body language. So once he came to a class and he asked us about our interests, and I remember very clearly, and our course mate Nasir Khan Pathan, 6 feet tall, and his body language very threatening. And he started talking about guns, its uses, its now none of us had any knowledge about guns. Maybe a couple of one or two would have. So he went about talking about guns and etc. and all that, and what kind of gun etc. And were we not stunned to hear Mr. Rafique correcting about this gun to be used for this particular shoot, its caliber, the bullets, the magazine or the bullet has to be used, and I mean we had no such idea except what read in the Western thrillers, the Wild West books, the six guns and the Winchester. That's all we knew about, and the machine gun. That's all we knew about, and the shotgun, the sawed-off shotgun. That's all, nothing more. And here he was going about talking about the caliber and how to use which gun for which situation, and how to clean it up and how to stack it, how to store it so it doesn't get damaged. Its makers, the wood it was made of, and he was not sounding pompous. He was not sounding at all to be like I know more than you. Na? He was sounding sharing knowledge. He outclassed Pathan, and Pathan wisely sat down with the grin on his face, which showed that, well, I know I'm beaten, and Pathan doesn't accept defeat graciously otherwise. He knew he was beaten totally. And so was a fellow classmate, Rajput, when he talked about his interest of horses. And there again, Mr. Rafique corrected him about horses. I mean, with a knowledge which, only a man who had worked with horses would know. We had no such. The class was just in silence, stunned. Man, he knows about guns, he knows about basketball, he knows about literature, he knows about music, he can talk about horses. What does he not to know about? A reservoir of knowledge. So we had already seen it, all of us, majority of us, in the interviews. So we look forward to very much to his coming into our class. And as I said earlier, during my interviews, he was the chief interrogator out of a panel of 5. But he didn't interrogate. He wanted to know what we knew about her. He didn't touch our mark sheets at all. He was not interested. He just saw through our profile and said, okay, so your interests, so in my case, basketball. And then he said, what level have you played? And I said, this level. So which is the favorite team? So I said, in India, this is my favorite team. So he said, no, worldwide. Which is the best, finest basketball team? I said, sir, it's very hard to differentiate. So the Olympics finals is USSR versus USA, and every point, you don't know what's going to happen the next moment, the next second. So he says, no, besides the competitive basketball, which is the finest team. Now here I was wondering. For a moment I paused and I said, sir, the Harlem Globetrotters. He smiled. I said, oh, thank God, I got it right. And then literature, I talked about serious literature as well as what? Phantom comics. I do read Phantom comics. If I get a chance now, I'll read Phantom comics. And then he went about talking about, tell me, what is Phantom's, the island, that the beach that he has, what is the name? What is the name of the plateau that he has? The name, I mean, started off with his horse's name, and then he says, what is the dog's name? I said, sir, it's not a dog, he's a wolf, devil. So he smiled at that, and he wanted to, that was a googly. So he went in detail, and he knew everything. So that you have to earn his respect, and it was good fun to earn his respect. And likewise, many of my course mates also must have answered very well on the interests, respective interests. So this is what the man is all about. Somewhere in the middle of the session, the first year session, he stepped in after the 15th of August. I remember that distinctly. Because we had made a tricolor biryani or pulao, I don't know what it was. But I do remember we made a tricolor, our first sort of thing. For me, it was an eye opener. For those who had done a 6 months cookery course, it was nothing big. They'd done it regularly. So he steps into our class and says, asks us, what is the difference between a pulao and a biryani? Now, with our little bit of knowledge of kitchens and now a little technical expertise, again the 38 hands, shut up. The answers this time a little subdued, but still not as ballistic as before, but they were pompous. And he probably, memory eludes me, memory doesn't let me remember this. That day maybe he was called, and later on also he did not come into our classrooms to sum up the answer. Because otherwise, normally he has a patched up memory. He'll always remember what he had. It was only 3-year diploma class that time. So he would remember what question he had asked, what were the answers, and which particular boy or girl had answered it. It was not grilling, it was not some sadistic pleasure. It was just a question of you got to know more. You just can't skim the surface. You got to know him more in detail. So this particular thing, he missed out on. The answer, ascertaining the answer from us and from to sum it up. Now, over the course of that's then 1986 I'm talking about. Now, over the course of our teleconversations that we had even after when I passed out, so do many of my course mates have with him and my alumni. One of the things that happened a couple of days back was I texted him a message that Pope Saint Francis had apparently quoted. It was quoted on that after being discharged from the hospital, he had said that hospital walls hear more honest and more heartfelt prayers than church walls have ever heard. It went on like that, about how people forget their caste, their creed, their community in the hospitals. A doctor waiting on another patient who's like from different, I mean, they may be prejudiced with history and with otherwise on the streets. But here, it's everything is equal. A prisoner and a policeman in the same ward receiving the same attention, attended by maybe the same doctor. So all that put together, that's when the universe manifests itself as one. So we're talking about that, and so I enjoy these talks with him, and I wish I was in Ahmedabad to talk with him this in person. But then we make up with the telephone calls. So he says, Neel Kanthan, in that case, I think I have wasted my life. So I interrupted him. I said, no, sir, you have not interrupted. You have not wasted your life. As a teacher, you have contributed. Maybe not as much as the Pope communicated to me, but you have. I said, as teachers, we both have, sir, in a small measure, albeit, but we have. Isn't it beautiful that we had a responsibility, we didn't have a job. We could never be late even for a day in the morning or for a classroom session. On 15th of August or on 26th of, I mean, we would never be found on leave because there's some function going on. And on 31st, also we had to be there. On every function, we had to be there at college to celebrate with the students, even if it is Janmashtami or Diwali. We had to celebrate with the students in the hostels at least, so they don't feel out of place. Holy, etc. That's how we have done it, sir. We have done a little bit measure, And remember, sir, we had a responsibility. We didn't have a duty. Teachers don't have duties. And we never retired, sir. You and I never retired. Have we? No. Otherwise, why should I be calling you? And why would my students be calling me? Somewhere, and then our life gets enriched with that one phone call. We realize our students have not forgotten us, but maybe they're more busy in their lives, which is very important with their professional life, their personal lives. And one day a phone call comes, sir, how are you, sir? I'm sorry, I missed calling you. So you remember who I am? And then out of those 1,000 faces for me, I would try to remember. And then he gives, and the person starts giving clues. Then you go to side, and then he says, sir, you don't remember. I said, this must happen to you also. I said, isn't it beautiful? So we have done something in life. And then he told me something. He says, Neel, I was referring your name in one of those classroom sessions that I had recently. I said, my name? Why, sir? He says, remember I had asked you this query in first year, when you were in first year, the difference between Biriyani and Pulao? I said, yes, I remember. I said, you remember? He said, yes, I remember very well. And somewhere in the 2000, early 2000, you had sent me a copy of the Hindu newspaper, which had a beautiful article on the difference between the Pulao and a Biryani. Now, I read it, I mean, I have a habit, a proclivity rather, to always read something, and if I find it interesting, I'll always forward it to somebody who reads well and absorbs it. It's maybe I like sharing knowledge, I like sharing information. It's my basic characteristic trait. But I was wondering, 4 decades later, I had forgotten, and this man remembers 4 decades later that I had forgotten I'd sent in the Hindu newspaper. I have no clue today also what was written in that paper. I have forgotten, but he remembered. Maybe he would have kept it. Knowing him, he would have kept it properly. Now, blessed that we had such a beautiful human being as a teacher, as a prime teacher, as a principal, and a principal teacher. One such teacher can inspire us not only as a student, but more so when we age in years. Because his remarks in 1985, then when I told him, I said, sir, we have such an apology of an institute, we have no infrastructure. IHM Ahmedabad, IHM Bombay, IHM Madras. It's pathetic. It says, Neel, an institution is not built by brick and mortar only. It's built with dedicated, committed teaching faculty members, a complete library, alumni. So that's what goes to making a great institution. Now today, IHM Ahmedabad is a fantastic new complex, a new campus of its own, a huge sprawling campus. But the mind goes always back to that beautiful campus where we shared, because that is where the seeders of the great institution called the Institute of Ahmedabad, Hotel Management Ahmedabad. See, I'm so emotional, I'm choking on my words. But that's where the soul is there in that institute, the small little institute we had. We had no watertight compartments because it was such a small institute that the first years, the second years, the third years, we knew each other so well that if you had to bunk a class, it didn't bother when any third year would go in any first year or second year. Now, but if you check with today's children in the big institutes, like in Ahmedabad itself, did he study with you? Do you know her? Sir, he was there in my year, sir, but he was in a different batch. Here, my 2 years juniors, they know me very well. I know them very well also. So that's where the beautiful thing comes. That's where Mr. Rafique played a beautiful role also. He ticketed us very well. Now, isn't that the perfect icing on the cake, which is going to be baked in on the occasion of our golden jubilee celebrations of our founding day? Embrace the twist to enjoy the turn.